focus of all those documentaries and Hollywood movies. But there's one version of Titanic we have never seen until this morning.
A disaster more than a century old is speaking again, not through stories, but through the photographs it left behind. Images of elegance, routine, and quiet human moments aboard the Titanic have held their secrets for generations. Now, advanced restoration cuts through the blur of time, exposing forgotten details, faces hidden in the background, words etched in shadows, and clues that challenge long-accepted history. One photo even left experts pale after a closer look. From the iceberg that doomed the ship to the smallest haunting relics, these aren't just images, they're truths resurfacing. Today, we uncover 50 unforgettable Titanic photographs. RMS Titanic nearing launch. RMS. Titanic neared her launch in Belfast in January 1911. Workers stood by as the giant hull rose from the slip. For months, men hammered, riveted, and painted. The liner was built by Harland and Wolff to cross the Atlantic in a new style. She would leave Southampton and Cherbourg on April 10, 1912, her first trip to New York. People called her grand and safe. Only days later, she would strike an iceberg and sink near Newfoundland on April 15th. Families, workers, and sailors remembered the launch as a proud day that later gained a tragic shadow. The image keeps that felt change between hope and loss. Launch day crowd. On May 31, 1911, a huge crowd gathered in Belfast to watch Titanic slide into the River Lagan. Photographs from the launch freeze a sea of faces, workers, families, officials, each caught in a moment of excitement. Film and stills show people who later appeared at Queenstown 3 days before Titanic sailed, an odd link across time. The launch used 22 tons of soap and tallow to ease the hull into water, a short, dramatic moment that lasted under a minute. Among the crowd are names and strangers. One man appears in photos yet leaves no passenger or crew record, a small mystery among many. Their faces hold unasked questions. Captain and officers. Captain Edward Smith sits among other officers in a formal group portrait taken before Titanic sailed. He is seated third from the left, wearing a dark uniform and a plain face. Around him stand mates, engineers, and crew who would share duty and fate. The photo shows stiff collars, brass buttons, and serious looks. They were men of rank chosen to run a great ship. Some later led lifeboat launches. Others went down with the ship. This picture captures a moment of command, a human chain of duty and the heavy choices faced on that cold April night. The photo shows names, rank, and a quiet sense of duty. A moving city at sea. The Titanic at sea in 1912 cut through waves like a moving city. Steam rose from funnels as decks filled with people walking and talking. She was the largest liner then, built to carry many souls in style and speed. Crew and officers tended engines, cooked meals, and guided the ship. From a distance, she looked proud and steady, a marvel of iron, wood, and light. Travelers watched the horizon and spoke of work, chance, and future hopes. That strong image of a great ship at sea later became a symbol of sudden, hard loss when the world learned of her end. People saw her strength and grace. First-class cabin. A first-class suite on Titanic offered soft carpets, brass fittings, and a private washroom. The cabin picture shows neat beds, a vanity, and folded linens. Windows let in daylight and heavy curtains framed each view. Passengers expected quiet nights and fine service in rooms like this. Trunks were stacked, coats hung, and staff moved with care. The tone was calm and ordinary, a small home at sea for travelers heading to New York. Photographs of these cabins remind us that comfort and routine existed beside danger. The photo holds a gentle memory of life before disaster. Visitors still study it for craft, memory, and ongoing slow decay. Quiet retreat. The first-class reading and writing room was a quiet, light-filled space meant for letters and reading, mainly used by women and the well-to-do. Silk-upholstered chairs, tall windows, and Georgian-style touches made it a peaceful retreat from the ship's bustle. An enhanced photograph reveals a faint silhouette at a distant window, a figure no one has clearly identified. Books and writing materials were kept there, and passengers used the room to write letters home or borrow novels for the voyage. The presence of a lone, ghostly figure makes the room feel more private and strange, a small human trace in the ship's public life. It raises quiet questions about identity. Second-class comfort. The second-class dining room on D-deck was a dignified space with long mahogany tables bolted to the floor and room for nearly 400 people. Photographs reveal deep crimson upholstery, carved wood panels, and plain but sturdy serviceware. In one enhanced image, a faint carving reads, "April 10th," perhaps scratched by a passenger marking the voyage. Meals were cooked in the same galley that served first class, and after dinner, music and conversation filled the room. For many, second class offered comfort and social life at sea, good food, company, and a view, far from the cramped steerage below. Service was efficient, and many praised the calm room there. Smoking room. The first-class smoking room was a warm, richly decorated space with inlaid mahogany, stained glass windows, and a fireplace above which hung a painting titled "Approach to the New World." Men gathered there to play cards, talk, and smoke late into the night. Witness accounts say the room was one of the last places where normal life went on as the ship's fate unfolded. Among those who used the room were notable figures who later walked the decks or helped others into boats. The smoking room's calm, polite company and low lamplight make surviving photos feel like a private scene from an ordinary evening that would end in disaster. Shipboard gym. Titanic's gymnasium was a compact fitness room on the boat deck, filled with early exercise machines, rowing rigs, stationary cycles, and electric camel machines. Polished oak panels and tall mirrors framed the space, and passengers paid a small fee for a trainer's session. Photos show scuffs on the floor, smudged glass, and equipment placed close together, signs of real use. Modern image enhancement and AI study bring out fine details: stitch marks on upholstery, the grain in wood, and shadows of people at work. The room was a private corner of normal life on a vast new liner, where health and leisure met in the open air. Boats at the rail. A clear photograph taken before the voyage shows Titanic's lifeboats stowed along the boat deck, ready. The ship carried 20 boats, each shaped and roped into place, a number that met the era's rules but fell far short of the people aboard. On the night of the sinking, many boats left partially filled because officers doubted how the lowering gear would behave under full weight. The photo is a haunting record of preparation and failure. Rows of craft that could have saved many more. The image forces a terrible question: how different history might have been with more boats, clearer rules, or stronger leadership, and faster drills that night. The fatal iceberg. 2 days before April 14, 1912, Captain W. Wood photographed a huge iceberg while crossing the North Atlantic. He noted the ship's position and later developed the image in New York. The picture shows a tall, jagged mass of ice with a textured face and a shadowed base. Survivors' sketches from the disaster match the shape and surface marks closely. Modern enhancement and a single AI study that examined the tones found striking agreement with those old descriptions. If this is the same berg, the photograph ties one cold object to more than 1,500 deaths. The image is small but deeply chilling, a precise and silent witness. Cork and canvas. Titanic carried cork and canvas life vests meant to float every soul on board. The vests had thick cork pads stitched into coarse canvas and tied with thin fabric straps. Photographs and survivor notes show how heavy and clumsy they were when wet. Some people said they boosted buoyancy so violently that a sudden jump into icy water could cause neck or head injury. Yet these vests saved lives too. A few wore them long enough to be found by rescuers. Several original jackets survive in museums and private collections, faded, stained, and brittle from salt and time. One fetched $119,000 in a 2007 auction in London. Survivors in a lifeboat. A passenger on Carpathia snapped a photo of survivors in a lifeboat after rescue. Faces stare out from heavy coats and blankets, wet hair plastered to brows. The small craft held weary men, women, and children who watched the sea for more danger. Carpathia's crew moved among boats to bring people aboard and offer dry clothing and tea. The image shows both relief and shock. Saved bodies wrapped against cold, eyes fixed on land or memory. That single moment holds rescue, grief, and the strange silence that follows a great loss. That one frame captures rescue, deep shock, and the long, slow work of care that followed afterwards. The spinning top boy. 6-year-old Robert Douglas Spedden was caught in a photo playing with a spinning top on Titanic's deck. The image shows his small coat, neat hair, and the polished wood under his feet. Family papers say he slept through the collision and woke to be told they would see the stars. He boarded a lifeboat and reached safety with his nurse and mother. After the disaster, the boy lived only a few more years. He died in a roadside accident in Maine when he was 9. The photograph keeps a tender, ordinary moment of childhood suspended forever, an echo of a life almost lost. Wounded hull. A Harland and Wolff construction photo shows Titanic's vast hull, a patchwork of plates held by millions of rivets. Close study of that image has fed one unsettling idea. A long-burning coal fire in a bunker before departure may have weakened plates along a seam. Forensic readers note tiny distortions and heat-like marks in the picture that could hint at early damage. If that zone was softer, the iceberg strike would have cut deeper and faster, turning damage into rapid flooding. The theory remains debated, but the photo is a troubling piece of evidence. A manufactured ship that may already have been wounded before it sailed, and catastrophe. Screws of the giant! Under Titanic's stern, massive screw propellers stood like iron flowers. Shipbuilders posed beneath the blades to show scale. Each propeller reached nearly the height of a man and weighed many tons. They were carved and bolted to shafts built to spin for days at sea. The metal glinted in shipyard light while workers checked bolts and seams. These screws would turn through cold ocean waves, driving the great liner forward. Photographs of that moment capture pride, craft, and the human effort behind a vast machine. The image makes clear how much industry and muscle shaped the fate of a single ship. It shows human skill and raw power. The sunken bow. The bow of the Titanic now lies nearly 4,000 meters below the North Atlantic. Once painted black and white, it now hides under rust and life. When explorers found the wreck in 1985, the forward hull still showed the curved wall that once cut waves. Light from submersibles fell on letters, railings, and torn metal. The bow holds the sense of final motion, the place where water rushed in and men tried to save one another. Photographs of this deep part show how time and pressure change steel into strange, silent shapes beneath cold water. Visitors still study it for craft, memory, and ongoing slow decay. Rusted winch. A lifeboat windlass on Titanic's boat deck sits now as a rusted relic. Long exposed to salt water and microbes, the iron shows pitted skin and strange growths. This winch once pulled davits and lowered boats to the sea. Photographs of it reveal the gear teeth, broken pins, and the way metal curls under pressure. Bacteria and chemical change have left iron extrusions that look like orange lace. That weathered machine is a small, stiff reminder of tools and plans that failed when men needed them most. The image is quiet yet full of history. That winch speaks to plans, to failure, to human limits, and time still. Café Parisien. The first-class Café Parisien on B-deck offered light meals and a bright view for wealthy passengers. Tables, wicker chairs, and shaded lamps made it feel like a small city cafe. Visitors would sit and talk of business, family, and plans in a calm corner of a vast ship. This photograph shows neat linens, glassware, and small vases on tables, signs of care and order. The cafe gave a private ease to travelers, a place where quiet afternoons met ocean travel. It was an island of comfort for those who could pay for calm and tea. Riveting danger. Construction photos show men setting over 3 million rivets that held Titanic's plates together. Often they worked by hand with no safety gear. lifting and striking heavy iron. Close views show imperfect heads and tiny cracks in some rivets. Later study of wreck pieces found similar flaws, leading historians to ask if weak rivets helped the hull give way after the iceberg hit. The images also show ladders, smoke, and crowded platforms where men moved fast to finish the great ship. These pictures capture the hard, dangerous craft behind a proud liner and the human cost of building such a machine. The captain's inspection. A candid photo shows Captain Edward J. Smith walking the deck in the days before the ship sank. He wears a heavy coat and a steady face. Behind him, 2 crew stand. Later research traced their families to descendants who did not know of their service. Smith led daily checks and held Sunday services, yet he skipped the lifeboat drill that morning, a decision many still debate. The small scene feels ordinary but hides weighty choices. That single moment before disaster makes viewers wonder about command, habit, and the small acts that can shape large outcomes. Children at play. A rare shot catches children chasing a ball across Titanic's deck, hair and coats bright against the rail. The ball shows a faint White Star logo, hinting it was a ship gift. Many of these kids traveled with families aiming for a new life in America. First-class children had more room to run, though all found short pockets of play. The photograph freezes a bright, ordinary joy. Small feet, laughter, and a sunlit floor. In the shadow of later events, the image becomes tender and cruel at once, holding life and danger in one small frame. Charlotte and Marjorie Collier. Charlotte and Marjorie Collier stand together in this touching photo, a reminder of courage and heartbreaking loss. They were among the lucky survivors of the Titanic, but their lives changed forever. Charlotte lost her husband, Harvey, who helped her and their daughter into a lifeboat before the ship went down. The family also lost their savings, money they had hoped to use for a new beginning in America. Yet mother and daughter pushed forward, carrying memories of that terrible night. Their story shows how survival often comes with heavy emotional weight, but also how love can help people continue. Their courage still inspires people around the world today. Grand Staircase Reborn. No original photo of Titanic's Grand Staircase is known to survive. Using images of sister ship Olympic and recent digital work, artists have rebuilt the sweeping oak, iron railings, and dome skylight. The recreated view shows carved banisters, polished steps, and a light-filled hall where first-class passengers passed and posed. This is where dress, music, and arrival met in high style. The virtual model helps people step into the ship's famed center to feel scale and grandeur that film and words cannot fully show. It links old craft to new tools and brings a lost place back to public view. The picture asks quiet questions. It holds both craft and cost. Ruins on the seabed. Ruins of Titanic lie in 2 main pieces on the ocean floor, split and scattered about 2,000 feet apart. Twisted metal, fallen decks, and scattered objects spread across mud. The stern sits broken and open. The bow lies distant and quiet. Fish and tube worms live among the wreck, and iron-eating bacteria turn some parts to brittle rust. Under bright submersible lights, the scene looks like a ruined city, frozen in place. Photos show cups, plates, and a piano lid among wreckage, each item a small human trace. The sight is both eerie and strangely moving. Visitors still study it for craft, memory, and ongoing slow decay. Crew muster. A photograph of Titanic's crew gathered for muster looks like a plain group shot, until you zoom in. One man holds a folded paper between his fingers that may be an unlisted note. Crew drills were meant to set roles and keep order, yet records show some safety routines were skipped. The pictured faces show deckhands, stewards, and engineers, each with a job that mattered in a crisis. The image suggests ordinary discipline and hidden gaps. For historians, the photo is a small evidence piece, a crowd that later faced a night of frantic work and impossible choices. The Marconi Room. Titanic's Marconi Room held wireless gear run by Jack Phillips and Harold Bride. A photograph of the tiny room shows instruments, wires, and an operator's desk. Close study brings out a logbook open with a faint note. Ice report. The 14th of April. Those wireless sets linked Titanic to other ships and shore stations, and on the night of the collision they sent the distress messages that brought help. Phillips and Bride kept sending even as the ship sank, saving lives by their steady work. The room is a sharp reminder of how one small space carried great responsibility. Salvaged hull section. A large section of the Titanic's hull was raised from the wreck in 1998, marking one of the most difficult recovery efforts ever attempted. The piece had rested in darkness for more than 80 years, battered by time yet still holding its shape. Engineers used special lifting tools and careful planning to bring it to the surface without breaking it apart. Today, the massive hull section is displayed in Las Vegas, where visitors can see the scale of the ship up close. Standing before it feels like facing a silent witness to a night of fear, chaos, and heartbreaking loss. Its presence keeps the memory alive for many. Sunrise on boat deck. An early morning shot from the boat deck shows a calm North Atlantic horizon with pale pink and gold light. Passengers used the deck to breathe sea air and watch dawn. Colorized versions match survivor notes describing the morning light after the disaster and before chaos. The quiet sky, the glassy sea, and the empty rails make the scene feel peaceful and fragile. Seen now, the photo reads like a preface, simple beauty that sat beside sudden danger. It is a view that keeps returning in memory with sharp, quiet power. Shoes on the seafloor. Among the quiet ruins of the Titanic, a pair of shoes lies on the seafloor, untouched except by time. They once belonged to a passenger who never made it home. The leather has darkened and the shape has softened, yet the shoes still rest exactly where they settled more than a century ago. They tell a story without needing a single word. No names, no faces, just the simple outline of a life suddenly interrupted. Many explorers say this site is one of the most emotional parts of the wreck. It gently reminds us that the disaster was not just history, but deeply human. The kitchens. In the ship's galley, a kitchen photograph captures chefs and cooks standing by gleaming copper pots and ranges, white hats and stained aprons in view. This vast working space produced food for more than 2,000 people, from fine multi-course dinners in first class to plain broth for third class. A menu card on a shelf lists dishes served on April 14th, now legible in close study. The image shows knives, pans, and stacks of plates, and suggests the long hours and steady hands that kept service moving on a busy liner. The galley shows how human hands fed a floating city. Titanic deck chair. This deck chair from the Titanic looks simple at first, but it carries an incredible story. It once sat on the ship's open deck where passengers relaxed, talked, or watched the ocean pass by. After the sinking, only a few chairs floated long enough to be recovered. This one survived the cold night, drifting until it was brought to shore. Years later, collector Chris Lowe bought it for $30,000, knowing he was holding a rare piece of history. The chair reminds us of calm moments before the tragedy, when people believed their journey would continue safely. Its worn wood becomes a quiet link to that lost world. An officer's mess. A rare shot of the officer's mess shows uniformed men gathered around a tidy table set for a private meal. The small room offered space for senior officers to talk away from passengers. Enhanced detail reveals a wall clock reading about 2:10, a moment of quiet routine before the night's events. These men would soon make rapid, grave choices under startling pressure. The photograph captures sobriety, simple friendship, and the small human scenes behind command on a great ship. It holds the tense normalcy that preceded a sudden catastrophe. It catches officers in a calm that would soon break. Pool on the middle deck. A quiet photo of the Titanic's middle deck pool shows a calm space that once felt exciting for passengers trying something new at sea. At the time, having a swimming pool on a ship was still unusual. So many travelers saw it as a small luxury during their long journey. The room was warm, tiled, and carefully built to keep the water steady even as the ship moved. People visited it to relax, talk, or simply enjoy a moment away from the busy decks. Cargo hold loading. A loading photo of Titanic's cargo hold shows dock workers hauling trunks and crates into the belly of the ship. Names and labels are stenciled on cases. One trunk reads S. Franklin, a name not found on passenger lists. Crates held letters, garments, and perishable goods bound for New York markets. Workers moved quickly to finish loading before departure, sweat and purpose on their faces. These images of freight and supply remind us that the liner was a living trade machine, carrying private goods and stories that sank into the deep along with the ship. Those trunks carried private hopes and public trade alike. Dishes on the ocean floor. Among the most eerie discoveries on the ocean floor were rows of Titanic dishes lying perfectly lined up, almost untouched after decades underwater. These plates once held meals for passengers enjoying the ship's grand dining rooms, but now they rest silently in the deep. The way they remained stacked suggests they fell gently from a storage area as the ship broke apart. Some were recovered and placed on display, allowing people today to see everyday objects frozen in time. These dishes remind us that the disaster did not only take lives, it also preserved small pieces of ordinary moments now lost. They still speak softly across the silence. Surviving crew members. This photo shows some of the Titanic's surviving crew only days after the disaster. They look exhausted, wrapped in heavy coats, carrying the weight of everything they had witnessed. These men had worked long hours on the ship, serving passengers, handling equipment, and keeping daily life running smoothly. On the night of the sinking, many helped load lifeboats, guide families, and calm crowds in the dark. Their survival came with painful memories they carried for years. In this picture, they stand close together, perhaps finding strength in each other. The image reminds us that even those who lived through the night were forever changed by it. The bell. This photograph of Titanic's ship's bell shows its bright brass surface and fine etched lettering. When enhanced, tiny spots of early corrosion appear, which is unusual for such a new ship. The bell stood near the forecastle and belonged to the lookout's watch area. Its purpose was simple but vital, to signal danger. On the night of April 14, 1912, lookout Frederick Fleet struck it 3 times after spotting the iceberg ahead. He immediately phoned the bridge, but the warning came too late. This bell, meant to guide and protect, became the sound tied to the moment disaster began. Titanic smokestack before installation. This photo shows one of the Titanic's huge smokestacks before it was lifted onto the ship. At first glance, it looks like an enormous metal tower lying on its side in the shipyard. Then you notice a tiny man standing near the base, giving a sense of the true scale. The funnels had to release smoke from the boilers, but they also gave the ship its iconic look. 3 worked, while a 4th was added mainly for design. Seeing the smokestack on the ground makes the ship's size even more impressive. It captures the engineering ambition behind building what was then the world's greatest ocean liner. The White Star Flags. A harbor photograph shows Titanic's White Star Line flags stretching out in the wind. Color enhancement reveals the exact shade of deep crimson used for the company emblem, a tone shared only with her sister ship, Olympic. These flags were more than decoration. They represented pride, identity, and the promise of a grand new voyage. When passengers walked up the gangway, the flags welcomed them with confidence and style. Today, seeing them in old photos reminds us of the excitement felt before departure, excitement that now feels bittersweet. The flags fluttered proudly, unaware the voyage would end in tragedy. The Titanic's Band. This rare photo shows the 7 brave musicians who played on the Titanic as the ship was sinking. Led by Wallace Hartley, the band chose to stay on deck, hoping to calm frightened passengers with music. Their final moments became one of the most powerful stories from that night. Even when lifeboats were being lowered and chaos filled the decks, they kept playing, offering comfort where little comfort remained. None of them survived, yet their courage is remembered around the world. People still speak about their loyalty, kindness, and strength. This image captures them before the tragedy, unaware of the role they would soon play. The Barbershop. This photograph of Titanic's barbershop shows neat rows of brushes, scissors, combs, and hair tonic bottles. The barbershop was more than a grooming space. It was a small social corner where passengers shared stories, news, and jokes while getting a shave or trim. The tidy counters and carefully arranged tools show pride in the work. Today, the image feels frozen in time, capturing a calm, everyday moment just days before the disaster changed everything. Passenger's gold watch. This gold watch belonged to a Titanic passenger, and it tells its story without needing sound. The watch stopped at the moment its owner entered the freezing water, freezing time along with fate. Its hands remain frozen today, marking a final moment from that terrible night. The metal is worn, but the design still shines through, showing it was once a treasured piece. Salvaged long after the sinking, the watch became a powerful reminder of how quickly lives were changed. People who see it feel the weight of that moment. It stands as a silent witness to the human side of the tragedy. The first-class promenade. The first-class promenade on Titanic stretched along A deck, offering sheltered views of the ocean through glass partitions. In a rare photo, experts' analysis reveals the faint outline of someone in the window, maybe the unknown photographer. This walkway was where wealthy passengers enjoyed calm morning strolls, talked with friends, or simply watched the waves without facing harsh weather. The peaceful scene captured in the photo shows the quiet luxury they experienced every day. Looking at it now, one can almost feel the soft breeze and gentle footsteps on the wooden deck. It represents the calm before everything changed. The mailroom. This image of Titanic's mailroom shows clerks working among tall stacks of mail bags. AI enhancement makes part of an envelope readable. Deliver upon arrival in New York. Urgent. The Titanic carried more than 3,400 mail bags, functioning as both a passenger liner and a floating post office. The clerks took great pride in their duties and worked long hours. When the ship began to flood, they reportedly tried to move registered mail to higher decks. Their dedication cost them their lives. This photograph, with its busy shelves and scattered letters, captures the quiet importance of their work aboard the ship. General room for third class. The third-class general room on Titanic was one of the liveliest areas for steerage passengers. It had wooden benches, tables, and plenty of space for singing, playing cards, or simply talking about the future. There's an unopened suitcase tucked in the corner, likely left due to strict luggage inspections. Many passengers in this room were emigrants hoping for a better life in America. For them, this space represented hope, community, and new beginnings. The warmth and noise of this room stand in sharp contrast to the cold, tragic hours that came later in the North Atlantic. The unopened champagne. This unopened bottle of champagne was recovered from the Titanic's wreck site, still sealed after more than a century underwater. The glass is stained from years in the deep. It feels strange to imagine someone packing this bottle for a celebration that never happened. It survived in the cold darkness while its owner did not. Many people who view it say the bottle feels more like a message than an object. It reminds us that the passengers were real people with plans, joys, and small treasures they hoped to enjoy. The lookout's post. This photograph shows the bottom of the crow's nest ladder, where the Titanic's lookouts began their steep climb into the open sky. From the top, men like Frederick Fleet scanned the dark horizon for any sign of danger. On April 14th, it was Fleet who first saw the iceberg and sounded the alarm. The picture captures the silent pressure carried by these men, who stood watch in freezing winds. Their role was vital, and their bravery often goes unnoticed in the larger story. An officer's bridge. This photograph taken from Titanic's bridge shows the wide, commanding view over the ship's bow. AI enhancement picks up a faint smudge on the windscreen, probably from a gloved hand belonging to an officer or lookout. From this very spot, Captain Smith and his officers guided the Titanic out of Southampton and across the North Atlantic. On April 14th, the bridge became the center of tension when the iceberg warning arrived. Orders were shouted, the wheel was spun, and the ship swung hard to port. But not fast enough. The photo freezes the place where fate shifted in seconds. The canceled lifeboat drill. This photograph from April 14th shows crew members gathered near Titanic's lifeboats, seemingly preparing for a drill. Expert analysis confirms the scene matches the morning when the scheduled lifeboat exercise was suddenly canceled by Captain Smith. The decision remains one of the most debated choices of the voyage. A proper drill could have improved the crew's speed and confidence during the real evacuation. Instead, confusion later cost many lives. The photo captures a moment that feels normal on the surface, yet carries a heavy "what if?" It shows how small decisions can echo loudly through history. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.